So we've got an interesting journey we're going to go on tonight. We've got the CRT, which is a Civil Resolution Tribunal, and it's like fast law. So things are changing, and really it's changing strata living in BC, dramatically so. And so we're going to go, and Shannon's here, which is great. She's going to explain how the CRT works and functions. But before we get there, we're going to talk about some roles and responsibilities. Sometimes it's unclear on what the Strata Corporation's duties and job is, what the Strata Council is, and then what the property manager does. So we're going to clarify that. Then we're going to have Shannon talk about the CRT, and then Veronica and I are going to go back to those roles and responsibilities and how the Strata Corporations and you as council members need to take steps into working with some decisions that have come out of the CRT to get yourself ready, because eventually you will go to the CRT, you want to have a plan in place, and you want to be make sure you're on sound footing. Sound good? Okay. So next up is our agenda, which I just talked about. Part 1, 2, 3 is going to be roles and responsibilities. Then we're going to turn it over to Shannon and back to Veronica and I for next steps. So I'm going to lead the charge, and I'm going to talk about the responsibilities of a Strata Corporation. So quick background on Strata in the province. Strata Corporations are legal entities as defined under Section 2 of the Strata Property Act. They are not corporations as defined through the BC's Business Corporations Act. So sometimes people think that they're actually running a physical business. You're not. And it's, I think almost the wording is poor, but it's a Strata Corporation, for better or for worse. It's not a corporation as it would be defined under the Corporations Act. They have natural personal powers. So really that Strata Corporation is almost like a person. They can be sued, they can sue, they can enter into contracts. And they have duties and responsibilities outlined in the Strata Property Act, its regulations, and the bylaws. So the responsibilities of Strata Corporation are outlined in Section 3 of SPA, and really it says, except as otherwise provided in this Act, Strata Corporation is responsible for managing and maintaining common property, common assets of the Strata Corporation for the benefit of owners. We took all of the duties and responsibilities that a Strata Corporation has, and we tried to classify it into 4 main categories. So the first one is administrative. So the Strata Corporation is responsible to keep, create, and share information. So examples of that would be parking stalls or depreciation reports. The Strata Corporation is also responsible to hold general meetings, and it's also has to prepare and issue forms. So an example of that would be like a Form B or Form F. So if someone wants to buy a unit, they need to know if there's outstanding strata fees or if there's outstanding items, and if they have a parking stall or if they have a storage locker. They also need to communicate various items such as change in strata fees and legal proceedings. So those are all the admin tasks the Strata Corporation is responsible for. They're also responsible for insurance. So the Strata Corporation, this legal entity, is responsible to make sure that it insures all the common assets of the Strata Corporation. The final 2 categories are probably what most Strata Council members are more familiar with, the repair and maintenance. So the Strata Corporation is responsible for maintaining common property, and then there's this thing called limited common property. And really that's a version of common property that is for the sole exclusive use of a strata lot or strata lots, and can be the responsibility of that strata lot. So a great example of this is patios. So a lot of patios are limited common property, and they're the responsibility of that owner that only uses the patio to maintain it. And so that's not a Strata Corporation responsibility. And so we also see limited common property when there's sections. So what you can have is you can have a whole, maybe it's a fitness area, and that's all limited common property as designated on the strata plans. And that, through the bylaws, is the responsibility of a section. So maybe in that case it would just be the residential section because the commercial doesn't have access to it. And so that's an example of limited common property. Today we're not going to go deep into sections because they're like mini Strata Corporations, and they come with all these great complexities. We're just going to talk about general Strata Corporations. And in general tonight, when we talk about the duties and responsibilities, we're going to talk in general terms, because each strata is a little particular, or they're going to have their own uniqueness. We manage a boat launch where each slip is its own strata lot. Well, that has very different needs than a downtown tower. So we're just going to talk in general tonight. And limited common property is usually in patios, or it's an amenity area that's designated to sections. Okay? The other thing that the Strata Corporation has a duty to is the financial. They have to pay the common expenses, so that'd be like the hydro that powers the elevator, or the hydro that powers the exterior lights. They need to maintain a contingency reserve and the operating funds. And so that would be, you know how you save every year, maybe based on your depreciation report or an estimation of what you should be putting away for the future into the reserve. And so that's a Strata Corporation responsibility. Preparing budgets and financial statements and determining strata fees. So that's a pretty broad, if you look at all those items, it's pretty broad. There's not like step 1 you must do this, step 2 you have to do this. So how does everything get done? How does a Strata Corporation, it's this legal entity, it has person powers, but it doesn't have arms and legs. So how is it going about getting its duties and responsibilities done? And really, section 26 talks about that, and I'm not going to read it in detail, but the owners elect a Strata Council to carry out the Strata Corporation's duties and responsibilities. So step 1 on our journey tonight is you've got your Strata Corporation, and it's a legal entity, and it's responsible for taking care of itself in most terms. And how it does that is, it elects a Strata Council. Now I'm going to turn over to Veronica, and she's going to talk about the duties and responsibilities of the Strata Council.